Kellen Rhodeses stood quietly on the glowing steps of the Varela Prime Embassy, gazing up at a sky ablaze with stars far brighter than any he'd seen on Earth. Varela Prime, a beacon of advancement in the vast celestial accord, was a world Earth had only recently joined. Kellen, Earth's newest ambassador, was a mid-level diplomat, an unexpected choice. He lacked the pedigree, the elite training, and the fame of his peers. He was chosen simply because no one else wanted to go. The Virolans were notorious for their cold demeanor, their impenetrable pride, and their impossible standards. But Kellen was no stranger to being underestimated. It was in fact his normal. He adjusted his jacket, took a deep breath, and stepped into the royal palace. The palace was a marvel of architecture, tall silver walls, curved like living waves, and glowing plants floated effortlessly in mid-air. Varelan guards, tall with smooth skin and crystal blue eyes, watched him silently. Kellen knew they looked down on humans. Varelans were telepathic and graceful, while humans were noisy and emotional. He was led into a vast room where a throne of soft light pulsed gently. Queen Marissa sat upon it, her face serene. Several royal advisors, their expressions unreadable, stood nearby. Kellen bowed slightly. Ambassador Kellen Rhodeses of Earth, I come in peace, in honor. The Queen's voice, like wind over glass, broke the silence. You are young for such a position. Kellen offered a polite smile. New voices a chance. One of the advisors, a tall Virolon in a golden robe, raised an eyebrow. Or perhaps Earth had no one better to send. Soft laughter rippled through the room. Kellen didn't respond. He had learned long ago that silence could be more potent than words. After the brief ceremony, a servant guided him to his quarters. As he walked down a quiet hallway, he noticed a small, open garden. In its center, a figure sat alone, a young Virolon woman, in a silver chair, floating silently above the grass, no wheels in sight. Her long hair flowed like white silk, and where her arms should have been, faint lines of blue energy flickered weakly, barely holding shape. She looked directly at him, her eyes sharp and clear. You are the human ambassador, she said. Kellen blinked. That's me, Kellen Rhodeses. I am Chiari, Princess of Varela. Kellen paused. This was the disabled Virolon princess he had read about in his training. Once known as the most powerful young telepath on her world, a strange accident 2 years ago had cost her most of her psionic energy. Her once strong and graceful body now needed aid to move. She was still intelligent, still noble, but most of the court now avoided her. An honor, Princess, Kellen said softly. She tilted her head. You don't seem shocked. I read your file. Most still stare. Kellen sat on a nearby stone. I've seen worse things in war. She studied him for a moment. They call you weak, you know. Yeah, he replied, heard that before. They sat in silence for a long moment. Then she spoke. Come again tomorrow. I wish to talk. The next day he returned, and the next. Over the course of the week, Chiari and Kellen spoke for hours. She asked about Earth, its strange history, its wars, its music, its stubborn nature. He told her about growing up poor, fighting for every job he got, and never being taken seriously. She spoke of life in the palace, how she had once been a star, praised by all, and how, after her injury, the praise had ceased. The nobles began to ignore her. Her fiancé left. Her powers faded. I'm still a princess, she said, but I am treated like a shadow. One day, as they watched the floating fish in the palace pond, Chiari asked, "Do you know about the bonding rite?" "I've read about it," Kellen said. "It's like a mental and emotional partnership, right? A lifelong link?" "Yes, every royal must bond before taking real power. My time has come, but no one will step forward." She looked at him, her voice cold. "No one wants a broken mind." Kellen's voice was soft. "You're not broken." Silence hung between them again. Then she spoke, firmly. "Then bond with me." Kellen looked at her, stunned. "You're serious?" "Completely. If you accept, the rite will be performed before the council in 3 days. But I'm human. That is what makes it powerful. It shows I still have strength in you. You are not like the others." He hesitated. This could create a scandal. The Virilon nobles already hated him. Earth's council would be shocked. The bond was no joke. It was permanent. But Kellen had seen the way Chiari was treated, cast aside, ignored, pushed to the edge. He knew that feeling. "I'll do it," he said, quietly. 3 days later, the royal council chamber was filled with high-born Virilons. Their robes shimmered and their thoughts buzzed in the air like cold static. The queen sat above, watching with unreadable eyes. Chiari sat in her floating chair, her energy limbs flickering faintly. Kellen stood beside her. A tall elder stepped forward. "Are both minds willing?" Chiari nodded. "Yes." "Yes," Kellen said. The room tensed. The elder touched both of their heads with a glowing crystal. "Begin the bond." Suddenly, Kellen felt as if he were falling into deep water. Images flashed through his mind. Chiari's childhood bright halls, laughter, the weight of royalty. Then the accident, burning light, screaming, silence, the pain, the fear, the slow loss of everything. Then he saw his memories, the war on Mars, the smell of blood, the sound of bombs. The day he watched a friend die, holding Earth's flag, the loneliness, the small victories, the endless fight to be taken seriously. Their thoughts mixed, their emotions twisted together. Not love, not yet, but understanding. When it ended, both stood still. The chamber was silent. Then Chiari turned her eyes to the nobles. "I am Chiari of Varilla, bonded by choice. Not with a prince, not with a warlord, but with a human." Gasps spread across the room. "I am not weak. I chose strength. I chose change." She reached for Kellen. Their minds, now lightly linked, echoed in harmony. And in that moment, Varilla Prime changed forever. The palace of Varilla Prime had never been so quiet. After the shocking bonding between Princess Chiari and the human ambassador Kellen Rhodeses, everyone in the royal court had something to say, but no one dared speak too loudly. Some nobles were angry, others confused. Many were afraid. Never in Varilla's history had a royal bonded with a human. Chiari sat in her private chamber, her floating chair humming softly beneath her. She was calm, but her mind was full of thoughts. Her new bond with Kellen was weak, but real. She could feel his emotions faintly, like heat through a closed door. She closed her eyes and focused. Kellen was nearby. She could feel his heartbeat, steady, strong. Kellen sat alone in his assigned quarters, staring at a glass of glowing blue water. He wasn't sure what had changed in him since the bonding. His thoughts felt sharper. His body felt lighter. Most of all, he could feel Chiari's presence in the back of his mind. It wasn't like speaking. It was like knowing someone was with you, even when you were alone. A soft knock came at the door. It opened before he could answer. Chiari floated into the room, her energy limbs flickering with soft blue light. "You're getting better at controlling them," Callan said with a small smile. Chiari tilted her head. "Ever since the bond, they respond more easily. I think your human mind is ... chaotic." "Thanks. It's a compliment," she said. "Our minds are trained to stay calm and ordered. Yours is wild. It shakes the structure of my thoughts. I believe it is helping me reconnect to my lost abilities." "That sounds dangerous." Chiari smiled slightly. "All growth is dangerous." Later that day, the Queen summoned them both to the Royal Strategy Hall. High advisors stood in a circle, maps and star charts floating between them. The Queen's voice was calm, but serious. "Virulent scouts have intercepted coded transmissions. Someone within the palace is communicating with unknown forces illegally." Kellen raised an eyebrow. "Spies? Possibly worse. We believe the same group responsible for Princess Chiari's accident 2 years ago is still active," the Queen said. Chiari's eyes narrowed. "I thought that was an accident, a lab explosion." The Queen's expression darkened. "We told you that to protect you, but now we suspect it was sabotage, a direct attack on your mind." Chiari clenched the arms of her chair, her energy limbs flickering. The Queen continued. "We believe this group may now see your bond with the human as a threat to their plans." One advisor stepped forward. "We suggest removing Ambassador Rhodes's from Varela Prime for his own safety." Chiari spoke before anyone else could. "He stays." Silence followed her words. The Queen looked at her daughter. "If he stays, you must both investigate this matter discreetly. No guards, no attention. The Council must not see weakness." Chiari nodded once. "We will find them." That night, Chiari and Kellen began their quiet search through the old records in the Ore Library of Echoes, a memory vault beneath the palace. Long ago, Virulans had stored entire conversations, thoughts, and decisions in this place recorded as crystal memory threads. Chiari's fingers glowed as she floated one of the memory strands in front of Kellen. "This one is from the day of my accident." Kellen watched the glowing thread twist in the air. He stepped forward and touched it. Suddenly the world spun. They stood inside a glowing memory. Scientists in white robes worked in a lab. Chiari, younger and full of energy, was at the center of the room. Her psionic limbs were solid, bright, and powerful. Then something changed. A loud hum, a spike of red energy. A figure in the corner pressed a button on a hidden panel. Boom! The light exploded. Chiari screamed. The memory collapsed back into the library. Kellen gasped. "You were sabotaged." Someone inside the lab triggered a weapon. Chiari nodded slowly, her voice shaking. It was no accident. They searched more memory threads. In one, they found a message written in Virulan code, buried behind. Layers of encryption. Kellen stared at it. "I can crack this," he said. "KYR." I looked surprised. "You can read ancient Virulan encryption?" He shrugged. "I worked with Earth intelligence before this. Human codes are messy, but I got good at patterns." As Kellen worked on the code, Chiari watched him closely. His face was calm, his hands steady. She had chosen well. Later that night in Kellen's, room, he finally broke the code. It's a message to someone called General Merrick. It talks about keeping you weak, about making sure you never reclaim your powers. Chiari's face turned cold. Merrick is head of the Accord Military Research Division. Kellen frowned. So not just Virulons. This goes beyond your world, she nodded. If the Accord's own generals are involved, this is bigger than we thought. Kellen leaned back. So what's the plan? Chiari's eyes glowed. We confront him, but not with weapons, with proof. The next day, Chiari invited General Merrick to a private meeting under the guise of discussing military technology. He agreed, not knowing Chiari and Kellen had set up a secret recording device hidden inside one of her energy limbs. They met in a tall glass room overlooking the palace gardens. Merrick was tall and quiet, with silver eyes and no patience for small talk. Chiari began with soft questions about old projects, about her accident. Merrick avoided answers. Then Kellen spoke. We know about the code. Merrick's eyes narrowed. What code? Chiari leaned forward. The one you sent from the lab. We saw the memory. You activated the psionic overload. Merrick stood. You have no authority to accuse me. We do now, Chiari said, because we're bonded and bonded minds are legally protected. You attacked a royal mind. That is treason. For the first time, Merrick looked nervous. Kyar, I added. Unless you want the Accord Council to hear the recording, I suggest you give us everything you know. Merrick's jaw tightened. Then he spoke. There are others, he said, not just me, a group hidden inside the Accord. They believe Varla's mind powers are too dangerous. They wanted to destroy psionic bloodlines before they grew too strong. He looked at Chiari. You're the top threat. Hours later, Chiari and Kellen sat alone in the garden. So this is bigger than just Varela, Kellen said. It's a war inside the Accord. Chiari nodded. But now we have the first piece of the truth. Kellen looked at her. Now what? She smiled faintly. Now we start shaking their structure, one mind at a time. She raised her energy hand. It glowed brighter than ever before. Their bond pulsed. Between them, stronger now, not just survival, but purpose. For the first time in 2 years, Chiari felt alive. And for the first time in his life, Kellen felt seen. Together they would change the future. For the next several days, the palace of Varela Prime remained calm on the surface. But underneath, everything was shifting. Princess Chiari and Ambassador Kellen Rhodesis had discovered the truth about her accident. It was not just a mistake. It was sabotage, a quiet attack meant to destroy her powers and stop her from becoming a true ruler. Now they knew the name behind it. General Merrick, one of the most powerful men in the Celestial Accord military. But even more dangerous than him was what he revealed. A secret group hidden inside the Accord, a group that believed psionic powers like Chiari's were too dangerous to be allowed. They didn't want peace. They wanted control. Kyar. I sat in her private meditation chamber, surrounded by glowing walls of energy. Her floating chair hummed beneath her. Soft sparks flickered from her energy limbs, brighter than ever before. Since bonding with Kellen, her strength had grown faster than anyone expected, but it came with risk. Sometimes she felt her emotions spin, too wildly, anger, pain, hope, all pushing through her. Thoughts like crashing waves. Human emotions were hard to control, but also powerful. She could feel Kellen's presence in the back of her mind, steady and calm. They were far apart physically, but the bond kept them linked. She reached out with her thoughts. "Kellen," his voice answered in her mind. "I'm here, still reading those council files, and drinking that awful green tea your staff keeps offering." She smiled. Even in danger, he stayed light-hearted. "We're not safe," she said. "Someone else in the palace is helping Merrick. We need to find them before they find us." Meanwhile, Kellen sat in the royal archives deep underground. He was reading through dusty files and encrypted records. Thousands of years of virulent history were stored here, memories, documents, and thought recordings. But he wasn't looking for history. He was looking for secrets. A faint hum echoed in the room. Kellen looked up. A drone, small and silent, floated in the shadows above. It wasn't supposed to be there. He quickly ducked behind a shelf and reached for his small translator device. It had a hidden signal scrambler he had built himself, a trick from his Earth. Military days, he activated it. The drone sparked once, then crashed to the floor. Kellen stared at it. On its side was a symbol, a broken circle. He had seen that symbol before in Merrick's decoded message. Someone had just tried to spy on him. That meant they knew he was getting close. Later that night, Kellen met Kiari in the gardens again. The stars above were bright and the floating. Fish swam through the air as if nothing had changed, but everything had. Kellen placed the broken drone on a stone table. "They're watching us," he said. "Kyar," I frowned. "That model is used by palace security. Only high-level access can command it." "So someone inside the palace is working with Merrick," Kiari nodded. "I have an idea, but it's dangerous." She explained a plan, a trap. They would leak false information into the palace communication system, fake plans about her regaining full powers and about Kellen gaining access to the Accord Council's secret archives. If someone was watching, they would try to stop them. And when they did, Kiari and Kellen would catch them. The next morning the false messages were sent, and just as they expected, something happened. A coded warning flashed through the palace network. "Security risk. Human ambassador must be removed immediately." It came from a terminal deep in the royal communication tower. Only a few nobles had access to that system. One of them was Lord Varric, a trusted advisor to the Queen, someone Kiari had known since childhood. Kellen was shocked. Varric always seemed quiet, friendly, loyal. Kiari shook her head. "That's the perfect disguise." They decided to confront him directly but carefully in the tower's upper floor. Lord Varric was alone, reading data from a glowing screen when Kiari and Kellen entered. He stood quickly. "Princess? Ambassador? This is unexpected." Kiari floated forward slowly. "We found your drone in the archives." Varric's eyes narrowed. "I don't know what you mean." Kellen placed the drone on the desk. "It had your access code." Varric stayed quiet. Kiari's voice turned cold. "We know about the sabotage. The secret group, Merrick. We know you've been feeding him information." Varric gave a small, sad smile. "You were once our hope, Princess," he said, "but you grew too strong, too human." Kellen stepped forward. "That's the point. The bond made her stronger." "You feared that," Varric sighed. "The Accord is already unstable. If other psionic families follow your example, chaos will spread. Chiari raised her hand, and her energy limbs glowed brighter than ever. "Better chaos than lies," she said. Before Varric could respond, palace guards stormed in. Chiari had called them through the bond moments earlier. Varric was arrested. As they dragged him away, he said one last thing. "You think this ends with me? You're wrong. The Accord fears you now, and fear becomes war." Back in the throne room, the Queen listened carefully to everything Chiari and Kellen reported. Her face was calm, but her fingers tapped the side of her chair, something she only did when deeply worried. "This changes everything," she said at last. "Kyar." I nodded. "We can't fight them with weapons. Not yet, but we can reveal the truth. Let the galaxy see what's been hidden." Kellen added, "Expose Merrick. Break the trust of the group he serves. Make the people question them." The Queen looked at her daughter. "You've changed, Chiari." Chiari smiled. "No, Mother. I've just stopped hiding." That evening, Chiari and Kellen walked alone through the quiet garden. "You're stronger than before," Kellen said. "Not just the power's everything." Chiari looked up at the stars. "I feel free because of the bond." "Because of you," she said simply. They stood in silence for a moment. Then Chiari spoke again. "I thought being disabled made me weak, that no one would stand with me, that I would be forgotten." Kellen shook his head. "You were never weak. We were just surrounded by the wrong people." She turned to him. "And now?" He smiled. "No. The right people are afraid of you, which means you're doing something right." Chiari laughed. Truly laughed. For the first time in years, far above, in a secret chamber of the Accord Central Station, General Merrick received the report. Chiari and the human had exposed Varric. The bond had made her stronger. "It's too strong," he whispered. He stared at the hologram of her face. "It's time. Begin Phase 2. A dozen red lights blinked on his console. The war of minds was about to begin. The palace of Varela Prime buzzed with quiet urgency. The bond between Princess Chiari and Ambassador Kellen Roses had become more than a secret alliance. It was a symbol of hope to many, but a threat to others. General Merrick's warning had come true. The Accord's hidden enemies were moving fast. In the early morning light, Chiari stood in the training hall, her energy limbs crackling with soft blue power. Kellen watched her from the side. "You've grown so strong," he said quietly. Chiari's eyes shone, stronger than before. "But I feel it pulling me, like the energy wants to break free." Kellen frowned. "Is it dangerous?" "Maybe, but if I don't control it, it will control me." Suddenly the doors burst open. Royal guards rushed in with news. "Your Highness, General Merrick's forces have launched a strike on our outer defenses. They're coming closer." Chiari's face hardened. "Prepare for battle," she said. "We will protect Varela." Outside the palace walls, the sky was filled with fast-moving ships, sleek, dark vessels with red markings. Merrick's fleet was attacking in waves, aiming to weaken Varela before striking at the palace itself. Chiari and Kellen stood on the balcony, watching the battle unfold. "This isn't just a political game anymore," Kellen said. "It's war." Chiari nodded. "But our strength isn't only weapons. It's our minds." In the war room, Varela's top strategists worked around glowing maps. Chiari's mind stretched out, sensing the energy of the battlefield. She closed her eyes, her energy limbs extending outward, reaching beyond the walls, linking with the soldiers' own psionic fields. She could feel their fear and determination. She sent a pulse of calm, steady energy. The soldiers rallied, fighting back harder. Kellen watched in awe. Your power is incredible. Chiari smiled sadly. It's not mine alone. Your bond pulses together. Deep inside the palace, a new threat brewed. A group of traitors loyal to Merrick moved silently through hidden corridors. They sought to strike at the heart of Varela, the queen herself. Chiari sensed the danger. Her energy limbs flared, glowing bright. She moved through the palace like a shadow, silent and fast. Kellen followed. The traitors reached the throne room. The queen was alone, studying ancient texts. Suddenly the doors shattered. The attackers rushed forward. Chiari appeared, blocking their path. Her energy limbs spread wide, glowing with fierce light. The attackers hesitated, then charged. A fierce battle began. Chiari's powers clashed with theirs, energy meeting. Energy. Kellen fought beside her, using his human combat skills. Together they pushed the attackers back. One by one, the traitors fell or fled. The throne room was safe. After the fight, the queen looked at Chiari with pride. You have saved us. Chiari bowed her head. It is only the beginning. Outside, the battle raged. Merrick's forces were stronger than expected. Chiari knew they needed a new plan. She and Kellen returned to the war room. We must strike at Merrick's base, she said. Kellen nodded. And end this war. They prepared a small team, elite, soldiers and trusted allies. Chiari's energy limbs wrapped protectively around them. The fleet moved swiftly through space. At Merrick's hidden fortress, alarms blared. Merrick stood ready, his face grim. He knew Chiari was coming. The attack was fierce. Chiari led the charge, her powers blazing. Kellen fought fiercely beside her. Together they broke through Merrick's defenses. In the final chamber, Chiari confronted Merrick. You failed, she said. Merrick sneered. You are only the beginning of our plan. Chiari's eyes blazed. Not if I stop you. Their minds clashed, energy against energy. The bond between Chiari and Kellen gave her strength. Merrick fell. The war ended. Varela was safe. Chiari looked at Kellen. Together, Kellen smiled. Stronger, always. The battle was over. The war had ended. Varela Prime stood tall beneath twin suns, its shining towers reflecting light like jewels. The skies were clear, and for the first time in years the palace breathed easy. Princess Chiari and Ambassador Kellen Rhodeses stood side by side on the balcony overlooking the city. The air was warm, filled with the fresh scent of blooming plants that stretched across the palace gardens. Chiari's energy limbs shimmered softly, their glow calm and steady now. She looked at Kellen and smiled. We did it, she said quietly. Kellen returned her smile, his hand reaching out to touch hers. Yes, together. Inside the palace, the queen held a special meeting with her advisors. The room was filled with hopeful faces. The secret traitors had been exposed and removed. General Merrick was defeated and imprisoned in the deepest vaults of the Accord. The hidden group that feared psionic powers was broken. The galaxy had seen the truth. Chiari's accident, once thought a tragedy, was now a symbol of resilience. She was no longer just a disabled princess. She was a leader. After the meeting, Chiari returned to her chambers. Kellen followed. She sat in her floating chair, feeling the weight of the past years, but also the lightness of the future. "I was afraid," she said softly, "afraid no one would stand with me, that my body would hold me back." Kellen knelt beside her. "You are more than your body," he said. "Your spirit is strong, your mind is sharper, and together we made something new." Chiari reached out, letting her energy limbs gently touch his hand. "Our bond saved us." Days passed, and Varela began to heal. The people celebrated their princess's return, not just in body, but in power and spirit. Chiari traveled among the cities and towns, her energy limbs now a symbol of hope. Wherever she went, people gathered to see her, not out of pity, but respect. Kellen stood at her side, learning the ways of her people, growing into his new role, not just as ambassador, but as her partner and friend. One evening, under the violet light of the twin moons, Chiari and Kellen sat quietly by a peaceful lake. Chiari's energy limbs danced softly over the water's surface, creating glowing patterns. Kellen watched, feeling a deep calm in her presence. "I never thought I'd find this," he said. "KY. I looked at him. "What?" "Someone who sees me. Not just a human ambassador, but the man behind it." Chiari smiled. "You've been brave from the start." He took a deep breath. "Will you let me stay? Not just as ambassador, but something more?" Chiari's heart fluttered. "Yes," she said simply, "if you will have me." They reached out, their hands joining, the bond between them glowing warmly. Meanwhile, far across the galaxy, the Celestial Accord's leaders gathered. The war had shaken their council deeply, but Chiari's courage had inspired change. New laws were passed, protecting those with psionic gifts and ensuring the council listened to all voices, including humans. The galaxy was no longer divided by fear, but united by strength.